I am excited today to talk about the idea that church flows from listening. Now, this wasn't part of my background. I was trained to do probably exactly the opposite of that. I went to seminary, I was a pastor for 25 years, and basically what I learned how to do was for me to be the one who was actually leading church, whether it was a small group, a Bible study, whether it was the big gathering on Sunday morning. It was my job to put together the flow of worship, the way things were going to go, and what I've now come to call spectator church or spectator Christianity. Then in the 90s, the Lord kind of got my attention, especially with this verse, 1 Corinthians 14:26. And I began to see that the early church was way different than that, what I would now call participatory church. Paul says, when you come together to do church, he says everybody has a word of instruction, a hymn, a revelation, all those kind of things. So that caught my attention. That's what I wanted to do. We started doing house church, and we would meet together, and I would say to people, okay, what did you bring? And sometimes people would say I've got a passage, a teaching, or a hymn, or whatever. But a lot of times they'd kind of look at me and say, well, I don't really have anything. And I would default back to my old mode of it was my job to be, kind of lead things and bring the agenda. But in the last few years, the Lord has given us two tools that have changed the whole equation. These are very simple tools, but they really help us to do this thing of seeing church flowing from listening. The first tool, and these are both listening tools, the first tool is this idea of checking in with one another when the church meets. So every week we take time to check in with each other. We might spend as much as an hour or even more going around the circle. We use SASHET, this simple little acronym, SASHET, to check in with each other. And we find that to be, the value of that to be cumulative. We do it every week. And what's flowed out of that has been community. As we learn to share about our own hearts, we listen to each other, and community has flowed out of that in a very spontaneous, natural kind of way. The second tool is this idea of checking in with God. The first tool is checking in with each other, and then checking in with the Lord. So in our house church, it's a very simple process. We make sure everybody has a piece of paper, pencil, or pen, and we send them off for 20 minutes, 30 minutes with this question. Here's the key question. The question is, Jesus, what do you want to say to your church today? People go off, they listen to the Lord about that question, listen to the Spirit, and then they write down what they hear. And they come back and share, here's what I felt like the Lord was saying. So that question is the key. Jesus, what do you want to say to your church today? It acknowledges these things. First of all, it's Jesus' church. It's not mine. Secondly, he's the leader of the church, not me. And since he's the leader, he's the one who brings the agenda. And the amazing thing is that Jesus is more committed to the things that we think are important than I will ever be. He's more committed that we would be people of the Word, that we're studying, we're meditating on the Word, that we're worshiping, praising, singing, that we are a deepening community, we're doing the one another's, and that we're on mission. And I don't have to program those things because as we listen to the Lord, those things flow naturally out of listening. A couple other reasons that this is really important. One is that we're doing the same things in church that we're doing in our CO2s. These same two simple little disciplines of listening to our own hearts, each other's hearts, and then to the Lord. And everything flows out of that. Somebody once said that Pele, the famous soccer player, supposedly said, I only have 2 moves, but I do them really well. Well, that's kind of the same thing here. These are very simple kinds of things, but we work on them in every kind of a setting. It's also true that these 2 simple practices, these 2 rhythms of listening, because they're so simple, they allow church to multiply rapidly. Neil Cole said that only that which is simple is able to multiply rapidly. These 2 things are so simple that a person can come to our house church one time and experience that and know enough to then go plant their own house church. Now, they're simple, but they're also profound. It's kind of like a hammer is a simple tool. A first grader can pick it up and can hammer a nail. But a carpenter who's worked with a hammer for years can do amazing things. So it works for both the first grader, but also the experienced person. These simple tools are much the same kind of way. So, the key idea, church and all the things that go together to make church flow naturally from listening. Our goal, our prayer is that would expand, and we would see that multiply across the face of the earth, in order that there would be a vibrant family of Jesus within easy reach of every person on the planet. That's our goal.